Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouters Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouter on a Tuesday morning. And Kermit is in the house, and he's green and he is loving it. He's owning Tuesdays over here. Yes, quite a few things to talk about actually. Before last night I was like, oh, there might not be as much. Looking for some headlines, and I was hoping the press conference would be up, but I don't see anything online yet for the press conference, the pre-match press conference. So we're not going to get as many tidbits as well. Sir Z says, "Good morning, good morning, sir." Yes. By the way, yeah, really late night last night. First of all, I was doing the streaming thing with the gaming that I just started. I'll do some shameless promotion later on and throw the link if you guys want to subscribe, if you guys are into gaming at all, or just to give some kind of support, which is what Sir Z was doing, because I don't think he was big on the game. Thanks to you, I was dreaming of Russian buildings. Yeah, I mean, dude, I figured it out. And that the funny thing is, like, as I was playing the game, and this is why I like the game streaming thing. I think I'm gonna like it in the long run, even though I do hear Twitch can get really toxic and stuff like that. But I mean, YouTube does too. Yeah, this Russian dude jumped on, and I was chatting with him, and he was kind of talking about the game and stuff like that. So that was a interesting ordeal over there. But yeah, I had fun doing that. And then a lot of stuff happening for American Scouts, or hopefully in the next few weeks over here, as we kind of hopefully run to the title with the team. So I had some meetings with that. It had been a ridiculously and unnecessarily late night, I have to say. Might as well have doing the fasting thing, because I was up for sahur, if you will, if I was fasting. But yeah, a lot coming your way. We do have a new sponsor that we'll announce shortly, and also a lot more programming and stuff like that we're thinking of. So we'll get to all that pretty soon here, headed your way with that info. Yes, I did see this. The biggest news probably is Gakpo was not at practice today. So they had the open practice, no Gakpo. So it does go back to what we were originally thinking and what we were talking about yesterday. I kind of did not expect him to start anyway. I still do think it's Diaz on left, Jota in the middle. What this could possibly do is Gally threw out a theory over there that maybe we'll see a City kind of lineup, which I can see happening. But at the same time, I think still opens the door for Jota to be in the middle either way. I don't know if he wants to get all four midfielders there and then play again 3 days later. So that'll be interesting to see. But Gakpo being out, you don't need him for the Southampton game, right? Or you shouldn't. So I think you're trying to make sure he's healthy for next week, or worst case scenario, you're just saying, you know what, we're going to have to do this round without you, and then we'll see you later, kind of a deal, once we advance, hopefully. So we'll talk about that, where I am. We were talking about with the boys last night, too, where I am with the cup tie, and, where, I mean, hey, we all want any and every trophy, obviously, but I think the level of where I am with the Champions League is the level of disappointment will not be that high for me. I don't know why. I think it's because when we talk about cups, and we talked about this in the past, when we were ranking the FA Cup and the League Cup and stuff, when we talk about them, I put, the Premier League, then it's Champions League, then it's FA Cup, League Cup, and then down here is the Arteta Charity Shield down below somewhere. You can't even see it on the screen, kind of a low. But so I will right now be freaking devastated if the Premier League is gone. And mind you, that would happen over a few months, right? It's not one game or 2 days, or two different games on 2 days kind of a thing. So I would definitely would be devastated if the Premier League does not happen. But if we do get knocked out of the Champions League, it will be extremely disappointing, because it does look like, and I don't know why we get this feeling as fans, but I mean, Sergi is saying that too. It's the best season to get the double. Why? I mean, why do we feel that way? I agree, but I why? Why do we feel that? Is it because we beaten the best on the way here, we beat Real and stuff like that? Do we think this is the year where we can best them? Is it because like the brackets. I mean, you look at the brackets, all the big boys are still really there. I mean, City got out of the way with this, but apart from that, all the big boys are still there. Yeah, I know the two Madrid teams are going to cancel each other out and stuff like that. I guess you could argue that the league being in hand, especially if we get past this round, I don't think the league affects this round as much, right? I mean, you do have the Southampton game in the middle. We talked a lot about it yesterday, both with the Prince in the morning and then with the boys last night. But if I don't think it affects it as much in this round, but if you do advance, when you go to the next round of games, I think it will help the cause because you will see that we'll be able to rotate and not, like rest some players in the league game, take them off early and stuff like that because it'll already be in the bag. And I do expect this thing to be in the bag in like two fixtures or something like that, where we're like, okay, now it's definitely done, kind of a thing. I think most people already say it's definitely done. We're up 13 points, 10 points, even if they beat Chelsea, I think is the game they have in hand. So, I mean, that's a lot of points, man, with like 10 games to go. And with some fixtures on deck, like you have, like Southampton, Leicester, and stuff like that, games that you should be getting the 3 points for. Homer Simpson to win the PL, and it will be, yes. Homer Simpson. Oh, by the way, yeah, we should talk about that. So, I love, by the way, how all these where Arneslat has the same initials as American Scouser. So it looks funny that it's if you put American Scouser in some of these things. I was reading that this morning, and every time I saw AS, my mind automatically says American Scouser. So I'm just like, but basically what he said to Michael Oliver allegedly and why he got the 2-game suspension. He told him that he freaking gave him everything. He didn't say freaking, he went all out. And then if we don't win the league, I'll freaking blame you. And to be fair, I mean, that's just honesty. Honesty should not be punished. But yeah, I mean, that would be a game. I think if we didn't win the title, and I'm not talking about with a 10-point league, but let's say these 2 last match days did not pan out how we wanted. Like we lost to City or something like that, or we tie with City, they beat West Ham, so it's a lot closer or something like that. I think there are certain games you would go back on and look, and this, like the Everton game, would have been one of them because I do feel like that game was freaking over. And you can talk about the foul for Konate and stuff like that, but overall, how the game was refed. Period. Like not just like an incident here, incident there. Because I think any team can go back in a season and single out specific incidents and specific games and be like, yeah, we got screwed on that one, we got screwed on this one and stuff. Any team can do that. But that entire game was a mess. It should have finished and all that. But it would be that game, and I think it would be the Newcastle game where we gave up the last 2 points with the Keller error in the very, very last second. Like I would go back to those 2 games if you lost the league by like a point or 2 points or something like that, and I would really put the blame on those games. Probably not fair because, tying, I don't know, United at home and Villa at home. I mean, you look back in the season, I think not that there is any shame in dropping points at St. James Park or in the derby and stuff like that, but I think the manner those point losses happen. I honestly, when you look at the season, I know back then the Forest loss looked like that should never happen and stuff. Now we realize actually Forest is a lot better team than we thought back then. I mean, heck, in the beginning of the season, people were putting them in like like relegation zone and stuff like that. Good morning, Tom. How's it going? Since you're saying Morning USA, I'm assuming you're somewhere else. Where you at, man? But I think, there are not really, I mean, this has been a season. We're used to having some over the top dud games. Like, that's why I'm afraid of the Southampton game being like that, for example. We're like, there's no way we should lose points in that matchup kind of a game. So I think when you look back at the season, I don't find a lot of games where I feel like, man, we shouldn't have lost those points. England's welcome aboard, sir. 310 there. That's, I mean, yeah, dude, you should see, like, me and my brother, we're up to like 9 hours now because they don't they're smart enough. Turkey has figured this out somehow, where they don't like change back and forth. So as we bounce back and forth with the daylight savings and crap like that, the hour difference changes. Thursday, you would blame Linders for anything and everything under the sun. But yeah, I mean, that's why I think if you lose the league now, going back to what I was saying, it would be a lot more devastating than the Champions League, just because of where we are and what we've done the entire season. Because it would be a huge collapse at the end. I don't go back and find a lot of games. You're not gonna have a freaking perfect season, so there are gonna be points dropped along the way. It's like, how ridiculous are those points is the thing. Like, were you up 3-0, you gave points, or were you, like, I don't know, Leicester at home or something like that, like easy, really easy matchups that should be 3 points. When you lose points in those, we've done this in the past, especially at Anfield, like a team that we were not able to maybe like open the lock and stuff like that, and then couldn't break down the low block and then like tied them or gave up a goal to boot and stuff like that. So, and heck, let's face it, we were playing down most of the time because we would always concede the first goal. So we've had those incidents. I just don't recall a lot of incidents this year. But going back to, like what Arne Slot is telling Michael Oliver, yeah, I would blame his ass if we lost the league, especially if it was a tight race going. At this point, I don't think if we lose the league from now, I don't think we would have the right to be like that that Michael Oliver back in freaking, I didn't think that would be fair. But if it was a tight race, like this Villa game, West Ham, our City game, if those match days turned out differently, where it was a tight race, like 3 points, 4 points, and you lose it, yeah, then go back and blame Michael Oliver, or Kelleher dropping the ball, whatever. Those 2 games will really like freaking like haunt me at night. But lose it now, I don't think you can go back and pick those games, because it would really be a lot more fiascos and disasters along the way to give up that 10-point lead, I think. So that's where I am with that. And that's why it would be devastating, even though it's over a certain part of time. Whereas I don't feel that as much. I have no idea why, man, with the Champions League. Even though tomorrow I'll still be a nervous wreck probably again right about game time. But right now it feels like a uncomfortable level of comforts, if you will. I mean, if you follow the show regularly and had me talk, I mean, I worry as a lifestyle, so it's kind of like an odd feeling to be so at ease with whatever happens kind of a deal. So, but I do hope, I talked about this before, the PSG matchup would normally scare me a lot more if it was the old style of playing, because I do feel like it's a team that can kind of hurt you very easily on the counter if you leave open spaces. I mean, we kind of saw what they did to City, and once they get that momentum going, it became like a freaking NBA basketball game, that game, where they suddenly got the momentum going and everything they touched turned to gold. I mean, they were so free flowing. So if you open the door and if you make it a basketball game, that's the game that I think we will lose against a team like PSG. But what I have faith in is how we play now, where it's more controlled and we don't open the door to that. And we have people like, I mean, I've always talked about how I see McAllister almost like a point guard in basketball, where sometimes he, slows things down with one pass and says, okay, let's calm down over here and stop running back and forth. Let's go back to our control game. I feel confident against PSG, mostly based on that, the fact that we are a lot more sound defensively. We're not as open to counters and stuff like that, where PSG would really feast. But I did like, I mean, he didn't think, presented as a guest, but he presented as like a possible curveball last night on the show Galley. And I can see something like that, where we are more happy to have PSG with the ball and hit them on the counter, similar to what we did with Manchester City. I don't know if PSG is as vulnerable, though, defensively, as, because they're not tested as much, right? So I don't know if they're as vulnerable defensively as City was. We knew going into the City game, that's where City is vulnerable on the counter, defending and stuff like that. That's what's really been different this year more than anything else, is the fact that, one, they don't score as much, putting teams away and demoralizing them, and two, they're not as secure defensively on the counter, and three, and that's probably the biggest factor, is psychologically now when teams play City, they're like, hey, we can get something out of this. Whereas I think in the past it was the other way around. And I think, in those title chasing reels years, we would watch a City game and we would, hoping for them to lose points and stuff. And it would be 2-0 and it'd be like game over. You can see like the other team just like already gave up. They're like, well, we're going to keep going against us. So whereas I think people felt like they could get something out of Liverpool just because of the way we played and the way we attacked, and we kind of like exposed our back line and stuff like that. That's not there anymore. So I do hope that's kind of like the winning factor going against PSG. But in terms of what Arne Slot said to Michael Oliver, I mean, who can blame him for that? And really, like, he got the kickback, watch the Newcastle game from up top, and then he'll watch the Southampton game from there, and then he'll be back for the final and all that kind of stuff. So it is what it is. I don't think, in some ways, it's odd, right? Because we want people to have that fire that we feel, and we are, the way we watch games and how involved we get and all that kind of stuff. But then at the same time, we want them to control the emotions too, which I don't think you can always have both. So I feel, I mean, Klopp was the same way. Klopp was definitely more on the emotional side of things. I mean, Slot is a lot calmer. And I always have felt that, like, if somebody is calm and they lose it, or they take, they're taken somewhere else, they're taken to being somebody else, you gotta, then that makes you look at what got him there a lot more than somebody who's always living on that edge anyway. So I think, you can look at that game, and I think a lot of neutrals saw that game and said, yeah, that was kind of, and nobody said, like, oh, it's like, why is he like that and stuff like that, because everybody saw like the reasoning behind getting there. And I think that's like really important. Yeah, it's a heated reaction. He got punished. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna happen. I don't know. We say it's not big news now. I think because of the comfort level and what's happened. Like, do we say not big news if you lose points to Slots and we're like, he couldn't make the adjustments? I honestly, like, I don't know how much of a huge difference in-game management in terms of being on the sideline makes. I mean, obviously that's his biggest strength, is doing in-game management, but you can do that off of a tablet or on a phone 6 rows up too. But yeah, I think we're saying that now in retrospect, knowing, we're up, it didn't affect us, so no big deal. If it did affect us, I don't know if you would, there'd be people saying, there's already people who are like, I don't want to say anti-slots. Anti-slots sounds a bit extreme, but just like with anything else, I'm in like a couple of like WhatsApp groups with people who do like similar like Liverpool content and stuff like that. It's more like for people to support each other's channels and stuff. And I mean, there are people over there, I can tell you guys this right now, who just don't want to be wrong. And when we hire Slots, they were not, they poo-pooed the whole thing, even though really we didn't know that much about Slot, right? Probably because they wanted Xavi Alonso. So when we didn't get Xavi Alonso, whoever we got was not going to be good enough and stuff. So there's a lot of people who talk shit early in the season about Slots, like maybe in the summer or the first couple of weeks, whenever, right? So now they don't want to be wrong. And like, it's a really, really sad place to be, because, but at the same time, they'll celebrate with us. But they're like, waiting in the bushes so that when something happens, they can come out and be like, see, told you about Slots, kind of a deal. So thank God they've been buried in the damn bushes. We haven't seen him because of what Sloth has done. But now you can already, then their comeback was like, well, he talk over Klopp's team and stuff like that, and everything changed. So, but those people are there. And I think if things were not going as smooth and this happens, people will be like, you're supposed to be calm, and you got like a, 2-game suspension, blah, blah. There are people like that who are waiting and would come out and do that. Yeah, right. I mean, that's the thing, especially with managers, man. I mean, with players, I feel like it's slightly different. It's a bit easier to project if you know the system, like especially if it's like 4 or 5 years in, right? Like what we had with Klopp. I mean, in the 6th year, we're interested in a player or we're signing a player. I think you can make an educated guess in terms of how you think they will do, how you think they will fit and stuff like that. When we hire a new manager, like some of the without knowing, let's face it, we don't really know a lot about managers unless it's one of these guys that's been all over the place and all that, right? Like Amram, we didn't know much about. Slot, we didn't know much about. We know what they're doing and stuff like that, but it's not like we follow those teams. You're looking at a resume. You know them as well as looking at a resume, and that's not knowing the person. That's not knowing like strengths and minuses and stuff like that, because you're not following the Portuguese league. You're probably not following the Dutch league and stuff. So there were a lot of people with those assumptions. And I think, there's like the nostalgic thing about like getting Xavi back and all that kind of stuff. And I was okay with Alonso, don't get me wrong, but I did not feel one way or the other for both those names, like Amarim and I honestly stopped after the Amarim thing didn't happen. I stopped watching these freaking managers playing styles and all that stuff. I didn't watch Slot's Feyenoord until it was like official. Because I remember like he made it official, but then he didn't even sign for a week or something like that, right? Am I remember this wrong? There was like kind of a gap between being like almost confirmed, but without being official. Oh yeah, because he was not even obviously Klopp did the chant and everything, so we knew it was coming, but he was not official. I think that's when I started like watching videos of how Feyenoord plays and stuff like that to see how like it would fit, because otherwise I watched freaking Sporting and stuff and it was like, yeah, it looks like this will fit the current squad and he can do this, he can do that. We were finding roles for people within that system, but at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing we don't know, and we've seen from Slot, is how well a manager adjusts to the league, to the system, to the players, how much they're able to tweak. I'm not big on managers that take their templates everywhere and try to like put it over the team, and some guys don't fit and get crushed, and then you have all these holes where like you couldn't fill it and stuff like that. I'm not, my system works. If plan A doesn't work, just do plan A better type style. I'm not too big on that. I want managers who, one, are going to be able to adjust a little bit, and two, get the most of what they have, especially when they're new to the style. I mean, 3 years, 4 years down the road, you can say, hey, this is my template. We got these guys to fit this template. This is what we're playing. That's totally fair. But I think when you come to a new job, I mean, we'll talk about Emery in a little bit over here, because I think that's what I understand. You come into a situation, it's going to take time and all that, but your job at the same time is to get the most out of what you have, instead of putting the temple on top of them, like shoving it in and see if like it fits, which is what he's doing over there at United now. You got to be able to say, okay, this is what we have, so let's see what we can utilize. And maybe you'll find out something about one of your players that you didn't know, like what we did with Gravenberg and what we decided to do with Gakpo and stuff like that. I think, and what he's done with Trent, I mean, these are things where he's adjusted based on what his players are. We were talking about this last night. We still don't think, but we don't know that this is the right back, left back profile that he does want. But when you have Trent and when you have his passing ability, I mean, not using that because that's not what your system is just like stupid. So you got to find a way to like, how can I get the best out of this guy? I think that's what the manager's job should be in any business. You can have your way of running things, but you're going to motivate differently and you're going to do things differently to get the most out of individuals as a manager. That's really your job, maximizing what the input is. Because otherwise, if you're doing the same thing and people don't, I mean, you can be like, I motivate great. These guys just don't get it. Well, you're not motivating great then, are you? Like, because it's just not, they're not getting it. Not sure too many people want to really, I mean, no one knew about Slot. I don't think no one knew about Emery either. The only reason people knew what Emery is, it was talked about a lot more. So it was probably Googled a lot more, and there were probably more YouTube videos and stuff like that. Whereas I think by the time Slot came up and then it was official and stuff like that, people did not even have enough time. But because there was so much Alonso talk and there was so much Amarim talk, it looked like, at least on paper, that he was like the third or fourth choice. And, we don't like third or fourth choices. We don't even know if it was third or fourth choice, but that's how everybody treated it. And there were a lot of people, calling doomsday back then. Saying like, oh, he's not going to be able to do it, blah, blah, blah. And, like he's not ready. He's from the Dutch league, all kinds of stuff. So there are those people still out there waiting. And trust me, they will. Like if next season, so like this season, now they have to kind of like come up with different scenarios. I mean, we talk about rival fans talking shit about, oh, like, we're winning because City is down and Arsenal down and stuff. Well, they should not be down then. Get up, right? That's not our fault. Just get up and play then. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. You play who's out there, you compete against who's out there. But there are some Liverpool fans who say that, because people don't want to be wrong. And especially, I think, when they do this, and if they said the same thing over, I'm more than happy to be wrong with, like, Nunez or Trent's defending or something. I'm more than happy to be wrong about that. But there are people who are not, and they don't want to be wrong. So they wait for any opportunity to be able to say, I told you so. That could be like 3 years from now, because then they'll go back and say, well, that was Klopp's team anyway that he won with and stuff like that. So they're already out there, like the groundwork is being laid out. But I really like what Slot has done. Obviously, you can't argue with the results. His calmness is probably what was needed, as opposed to, I mean, I know Sir Z wasn't, but I know when we talked way back then and we were like Gerard or like Linders and stuff like that, for the sake of continuity, for one, and I'm not too big on like ex-players being managers, because I think it's kind of distorts how people look at what they're doing and stuff as a manager, because we always think of the player memories and stuff. But I think, because of that, I think you can have, we thought Slot was not going to, some people didn't think Slot was going to do it, but that calmness was what was needed. It was a total different tone to it, as opposed to the continuation. While I thought, maybe continuation would be better with the players, maybe Klopp was right, and they did just need a new voice. Maybe even if saying the same thing, they just need a new voice saying it. So I can definitely see that, and you can kind of see maybe it was exhausting, like to have the old style. Doesn't matter how great your style is, right? It slowly grinds people down, and then they either get immune to some of the things you do, or like a change is needed. So that's why I think, a change in style was needed as well. And you got to go back to like exactly like Sir Z saying, like, you got to go back and give credit to Hughes and FSG. Like, for years people are like, FSG is like, FSG sucks, it's because of Klopp, now it's because of Slot. They're the ones hiring it. So it's almost like, if you hire a manager for a specific location, if the place runs really well, well, you got to take some credit for that, getting that manager in there. So I think they've done well with choosing the person they did, in terms of style and temperament and stuff like that. I think they went after the right guy. Again, you can call them lucky, but either way. And here's another thing, right? I mean, you don't know. I mean, we look at Emery now at United, and I don't think he's doing a good job. I don't think he's going about the right way. I understand the cleanup and everything. I was totally okay with that stuff. But this whole, like, if Maguire can't do certain things, Maguire is not going to be able to do certain things. You're not going to need to teach him a new trick suddenly. So, but there are certain things he can do. Well, then use that. But I think you can. The situations matter too. Like, I don't know if Slot goes to United, Emery comes here, and it's not going to be like, oh, United is going for the title now and Emery is struggling. I think the situations you walk into and how they fit your personality and strengths and stuff like that make a huge difference. This was a great situation for Slot to walk into. Maybe not as much for Emery to walk into, like in terms of, Slot is very direct, seems very unassuming, right? Maybe that's what you needed after Klopp. You didn't need another guy who's trying to be Klopp or who's trying to, be a guy and stuff like that. You almost get the impression that Slot just doesn't want to be a character. Like, he just wants to be in the background somewhere, like one of the extras. He doesn't want to have one of the main roles. He just, because as long as the final product is good, he doesn't want to be in the main role and be in front of the team. He's very content being in the background, which I kind of do like, and it's a change that we probably maybe needed. I mean, we all loved Klopp, but I think the next guy, instead of somebody trying to be Klopp, it's important that you get somebody with their own style and maybe a totally different style. And it has definitely paid off. Yeah, I mean, the Linders thing, I don't know. If you've ever been in management, there are guys who are assistant managers, and they are the greatest assistant managers, but they're not great managers. when they become manager afterwards. They were always a great assistant because that's was their like skill sets. And at times that's partially because the manager was taking care of some stuff that, like enabled the assistant to be a great assistant in the first place. Like you use that guy's strengths. Linder's was all the tactics and all this kind of stuff, whereas maybe Klopp is doing more of the, slap upside the head, pat on the back stuff, all that. He's doing all that, dealing with the players and the mood and all that, and then so you can focus on the tactics. Well, now you're the guy in charge. I mean, we see this in like in American sports too, like in NFL and stuff like that. You can have a guy who's great being a defensive coordinator, but doesn't know anything else, and then when he's in charge, he used to be able to focus on being a defensive coordinator and just his thing. Well, now he has to run all this, and he can't because that's not what he was designed for. He was designed for this. I think Linders is one of those guys, and I love his attitude and everything like that, and how he talked, and like his vision and stuff like that. But he might be one of those guys who is, a great assistant, but not necessarily a great like head coach or manager. So I mean, good luck to him. I kind of wanted to see him do well, but. And if he did well, probably not Sir Z, but many people would be like asking for him to kind of like, like come back and stuff like that down the road. I don't think anybody is going to be even the, the romantic take of it, nostalgic take of him coming back would be enticing to. In other words, Arteta good. I mean, to be fair to Arteta, he's changed the culture at Arsenal, right? But I still do say Arteta could be that guy before the guy. We see it on a lot of teams where a guy comes in, kind of maybe fixes up the mess, gets it on the right track, but then that has taken so much, and maybe he didn't have it originally to take him to the next level. Some guy comes in just like that, he changes like 2 tweaks, and then he makes things happen. So, yeah, but he's so like. Arteta is such an unlikable dude. I never had this much hatred for Arsenal. I really never did. So like, it was like Everton, United on top, then Everton, a couple of guys in City, and I think that's more begrudgingly kind of a deal. But like Arsenal, and then you watch the dude and then his reflection on the team, and you look at the pitch like a guy like Kai Havertz, who's just an asshole on the pitch, basically. Pretty much. You have whiny face Jesus out there. You have all these players that mirror eventually the manager, and somehow Arteta's Lego head and his crappy attitudes has brought that. You would think Mane would make a great assistant, but he would not. Where is Mane right now? Oh, season Saudi Arabia playing, right? I mean, I don't follow the league and stuff. He was rumored to go to Turkey for a while, but I was like, can we stop signing really old people over there? But yeah, it's going to be interesting tomorrow. No morning show tomorrow. So we will be here for the pre-match, but we will not have like the morning coffee show tomorrow morning. We will do for the pre-match once the lineup comes out. I will be back tonight though with the panel, 8 o'clock Central. No, 7 o'clock Central. No, it is 8 o'clock Central. 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. I'll be here with the panel. We didn't have games, but we'll probably take a look at some different stuff around the league, whether it's like some of the decisions being made, some of the rule changes coming up that we talked about with Matush yesterday and stuff like that. So do tune in for that. We should have like a full panel again tonight. But until then, have a great day, everybody. I'll see you guys later tonight. If not, tomorrow, once the lineups come up, we'll be here for the pre-match as we take on PSG. Some good games on deck today in Champions League, so do enjoy those games. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.